I'm going to screw a hole in here and put in a set screw to make sure these guys don't keep working their ways down the pipe. That turned into something that I'll have to deal with. On my 1/4 inch connectors, okay, that was these Radio Shack things. I used male and female connectors as well as metal connectors. I use these guys because they're very sturdy. I soldered them in. Okay, I use the metal ones from Radio Shack. I use the metal ones for the RCA connectors. Then I had a thought, because I've got a metal pipe running down to a metal bottom. It is a possibility of a short and an arc happening there when I start putting full power into these things. Well, by the way, these speakers are supposed to be able to sustain 15 watts apiece, continuous. Okay, that's kind of like RMS. Okay, which means they should be able to peak at double that, approximately. That means each of my stacks using these speakers came out to 240 watts per total stick. That's all the way floor to almost ceiling. 240 watts. Had I used the Bose 801, 901, 802 drivers that I really wanted to have but couldn't afford, I would have been able to get 480 watts out of each one of these sticks, which, people, it's a lot of power. I will tell you this, they sound like garbage at low volume. Right at 25 watts, 30 watts, they sound like car speakers. They sound like what they are, cheap car speakers. I think these were Ford OEMs to go inside the doors, only they were aftermarket, so they were to replace the 15 watt OEM with a 15 watt that really had a better peak level at 30 watts. When you hit 30 watts and get into 30 to 50 watts, these things, these sticks put out an incredible amount of sound. And very, very clean mid-range. Like I said, running from about 600K all the way up to 12 is where you start boosting it a little, 12 and 16K. It's very clean and it is very loud and it penetrates the room on all sides incredibly well. As long as you cross the 30 watt threshold. You got to get over 30 watts before it begins to sound like a real sound system. At that point, it does a darn fine job. I think that's all the additional notes. One last expenditure was when I used these metallized connectors and realized that they might short out against the pipe itself down to the stand. I had to go to Home Depot and get one more thing with that Home Depot gift card that I was using up. I had to get what they call heat shrink, 1/2 inch heat shrink, and slide them over the barrel of each of these and heat shrink it on after cutting it to size. Heat shrink it on so that then I don't have to worry about these metal pieces hitting in some way my metal pipe that I use to go up and down with. You could make these enclosures 8 feet long and not have to put a connector in the middle. I put a connector in the middle because it lessened the weight of the box and it made it fit in the car better. Okay? Just like the Bose system. Anyway, have fun, guys. Couple more tricks, things to make it easier for you. When I was doing all those holes, I had to mark all those holes. Okay, to mark them I could spend time with a protractor. I got to find one, or compass, excuse me. Yeah, I got to find one and get the sizing right and everything, and then hope it doesn't slip. Instead, I took a roll of masking tape. I cut the excess that I didn't need off the outer part of the roll, tore it off, threw it away, and used this, which was perfectly sized for my speaker, and just centered it where I needed it after I measured my distance to center point. Centered it where I needed it, marked around it, and then I could use my jigsaw on it. Let's see. Oh, on my speakers. I thought about putting foam rings around each, but they were going to cost money and I'd have to find a source and so on and so forth. I decided instead to just take that caulk that I was using, the 50-year semi-flexible caulk. I went ahead and just caulked the speakers into place. They're cheap speakers anyway. What the heck? I'm just trying to prevent air from leaking out the side around the ring of the speaker itself. So maybe that helps. I kind of forgot. I have a request. Besides, you know, donate your Bose 901 speakers to me. or your Bose 802s, I'm looking for 2 used 100-watt transducer speakers. Okay, these are speakers without cones. Or 3 or 4 of the 30-watt models that are used around spas and things like that. I got some experiments I really want to do with these things. So I got some ideas I'd like to give a shot to. So anybody out there has done an uninstall of a transducer thing. Now I don't need a butt kicker, okay, for car stereo. And I don't need a subwoofer thing. I need the full range models that are done for spas and jacuzzis, or they're done for in-the-wall mounting systems. I think RAS made a bunch at about 100 watts. Somebody's doing a remodel and ripping those things out. Send me 2 of them, would you? I got some ideas I'd really like to try. Thanks. When I was talking about earlier Bose, the 901s, the 802s, I talked about equalization because these are all mid-ranges. They're mid-range drivers, okay? They call them full range, but there's no way that a small driver can reproduce that kind of bass without using a closure to push against and so on and so forth. So a flat response on a 10-band EQ will be all the blue knobs are set level. And it will give you this. That's a flat response. In the controller, in the early Bose, that'd be the Bose 901-1s and 901-2s and probably the 801-1s and 2s. That controller box, all it was doing was boosting the bass range on a shelf, which is the same as boosting 3 of these to equal level. 3 of these knobs down at the bass range. And then it had a peak right here that they allowed you to slide up and down to try to capture the high end, the sizzle of the hi-hat back. Okay? It's the high end sizzle on a hi-hat, the high twinky part of a piano sound when it goes very high on the keyboard. And they allowed you, with their little box, because it didn't have these kind of controls, to just slide that peak either here or here or here. Okay? I assume this line array has that same problem. Okay? Because they are all mid-range drivers. So my assumption is that kind of EQ is going to be very helpful for those of you DJs who are just building the stick, using your own amps and your own mixers and your own EQs. If you can boost, particularly if you're using computer music and you're using Winamp, if you just boost something in the high end to bring the twinkle back some, and a shelf in the low end, probably from around 600 hertz down or 300 hertz down, if you shelf that up and ramp that up, these speakers will do wonders for you. If you don't do hip hop, okay, and you're doing a folk set, the truth is, I'm not even certain you'd need a subwoofer, okay, or a deep woofer down the subwoofer. Mine are set up to go 600 hertz and lower, okay. I don't do hip hop, okay, and for acoustic sets, it probably wouldn't even be necessary for this thing that I built. A line array is a line array. They've been around a long time, but this is the EQ you're probably trying to these are the problems in the EQ you're probably trying to fight. I've tried to get rid of this peak item right here in the high range sound, in the tenor sound, and the soprano sound. I've tried to get rid of that peak item by adding 2 piezoelectrics. Okay, the piezos that don't change the ohms on the speaker box itself. I just add the ohm on and I don't have to worry about my amp blowing up because of it. I've tried to do that by adding 2 of those, and I angled them slightly outward on either side to disperse that sound. And there will be combing effect, yes, for audiophiles there will be combing effect, but this is more like PA. And for my bottom end boost, I have my subwoofer, which I already own, and I will power it. That's all I can think of.